All right, welcome back. Today is our off the script training program. So what I mean by that is we're not going to train today. Last week we talked about how to get and stay productive. Today we're going to talk a little bit about books. Now, as a strength and conditioning coach, as a profession, we are a profession that kind of prides themselves on being very avid readers. What I'm going to talk about today is a little bit different because I feel like the books we read as strength coaches are very similar. You've got your classics, right? Your staples of the profession: Super Training, Science and Practice. You got Essentials coming out, Periodization. You got some of these classic ones. That's Yorsky, all the authors you could think of. Then you got your new age ones, kind of the ones up and coming. Cal's Triphasic, Conscious Coaching, High Performance Training for Sport, to name just a few. Which are phenomenal books. You have to read them. You want to get good in this profession, you want to do a great job. Those are absolute must-haves, and not just read them cover to cover, but study them, learn them. Along with that, we also like to think of ourselves as business tycoons, Navy SEAL leaders, New Zealand All Blacks. Like to also, the ancient Stoics, which I myself dig into very deeply. It's a lot of those things. You got your John Gordon, John Maxwell books, Gladwell, Simon Sinek. All these are great leadership, management, business related books that really do relate to sport and how we lead our young men and women. And my point is, if all the strength coaches are reading the same 40, 50 books throughout a career, it's a lot of the same information. Are we really going to move our industry farther? Is this something we're going to make ourselves completely different than what we were 30, 40, 50 years ago? All right. Churchill has a quote: "If two guys agree on everything, one of them is useless." What I don't want to do in our profession, our industry, is have everybody have the exact same ideas, agreeing on the exact same things. Of course, you'll have your differences of sets, reps, this, that, the other, but ultimately it's the same thing. To get you started, these are going to be my top 5 fiction books that I've read or currently own. Specifically mine, you'll see a trend in characters, in plot lines even a little bit, which maybe as I look back on it would be a good idea that I need to expand my own knowledge a little bit more. So without further ado, number 5. Number 5, we've got Playing for Pizza by John Grisham. My mom gave me this book. I believe I was still in college or maybe just shortly after. It's about an NFL quarterback, coincidentally plays for the Cleveland Browns just up the street. And after throwing a game-losing interception to miss the chances of the Super Bowl, he was cut, couldn't find a team, nobody wanted him. Ends up playing for a team in Parma, Italy. And very difficult for him, as a hotshot college star, NFL star, taking a huge pay cut, seeing what it's like going from the NFL and the seriousness from the fans and the whole operation to the casualness of Italian professional football. He expanded himself. He got a little bit better. He learned some things about himself really well, and had a great time, had a great season. And that's number 5, Playing for Pizza, John Grisham. Number 4, got The Catcher in the Rye, J.D. Salinger. Another coming-of-age tale for a young man who is suspended from school and doesn't want to go home just yet before the break, because he doesn't want his parents to know he was kicked out of school. So he goes and travels a little bit. He tries to see what's out there as a young man, as an adult, as a soon-to-be adult. Realized he didn't really like what he was seeing. Realized that maybe his youth is worth living a little bit more. Very interesting book, a very good one to read, no matter how old you are. But again, like I said, a young man coming-of-age tale, a classic book, of all the classics that have ever been written. This is one. If you haven't read it, please put it on your list. Number 3, The Road, Cormac, McCarthy. The subtitle on here says it all. A work of such terrible beauty that you will struggle to look away. A very bleak, post-apocalyptic look into a man and his son. A lot of it, it's gray. Everything's dim. Everything's dark. Everything's scary. What I love and hated about this book was how difficult it was to read and just follow along. The grammar is post-apocalyptic, to say. There's no quotations. You don't know who's really saying what, and sometimes you just kind of have to reread and kind of figure out what that dialogue might have been. But over and all, it was a book about a man and his son trying to survive, get to somewhere from one coast to another coast, or from somewhere in the U.S. They make a point to not really say where or when, but the man only has his son, the son only has his man. They've made themselves aware of difficult choices they may have to make. Good times, bad times, some fortune, some misfortune. Another great one from Cormac, McCarthy, Blood Meridian, No Country for Old Men, which has turned into a great movie. But if you haven't read either one of those, check this one out first. This one was really, really interesting and kind of exciting. Counting down to number 2. Probably could have been my number 1 book, but I'm keeping it at 2, just for a couple different reasons. And it is Fight Club, Chuck Palahniuk. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm sure you've heard of or seen the movie. I loved the movie. Gladly, I can say I read the book before the movie, watched the movie a million times. I've read the book after the movie, and I still prefer the book, although that's just one of those few that's as close as they come when it comes to books and movies. And so this one is great. Tyler Durden, who is he? Who is he not? And again, the plot line, very, very similar to the movie, right? Is a guy who's an insomniac, he can't sleep, he meets a friend, Tyler Durden, they hang out, they start to learn a little bit about each other, they start a fight club. That fight club becomes an unstoppable force across the country, across the globe, and maybe that the insomnia isn't his problem. So check that one out, read the book. Finally, number 1 on the list, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. All right, the Brazilian author, written in don't know how many different languages. It's the tale of, again, another young man who is in search of his a treasure that he discovered in a dream. He's sleeping in a old Spanish church underneath a sycamore tree, and having these dreams constantly about this treasure buried in the pyramids of Egypt. He goes on his way trying to get to Egypt. He's had his ups and his downs. He meets some people. He meets somebody who tells him about the alchemist and turning any metal into gold. He does meet the alchemist, and towards the very end of the book, he constantly talks about his own personal legend, his own why, his own reason for existence. And towards the end of the book, you get to the point, without giving it away, where the treasure was buried all along. I want to read, if that's all right, a couple of lines that come from it, talk about kind of the personal legend, what we're here for. So here we go. It's a force that appears to be negative, but actually shows you how to realize your personal legend. It prepares your spirit and your will, because there's one great truth on this planet. Whoever you are, or whatever it is that you do, when you really want something, it's because that desire originated in the soul of the universe. It's your mission on Earth. Down a little bit farther, and it says, and when you want something, all of the universe conspires in helping you achieve it. You hear that throughout the entire book a lot, about the universe aspiring for you to achieve your goal or your mission or whatever it may be. So there you have it. There's my list of top 5 fiction books, and hope you enjoyed it.